individually, and just give us your, background, what you're up to. Are you, your reaction to the lead training, and also what group you're part of, if you're part of a group, and what your group are already doing in retrofit, and any events you've got coming up, and so on. That would be really helpful. So, okay, so may I start with Kate? You're top on my screen.
Hi, I'm Kate. Like Jackie, I'm a retired ophthalmic surgeon. I've been an eco warrior for quite a while. My experience of retrofit is I've actually done it to a chalet bungalow, and the case study has just been published on the National Self-Build and Renovation Centre website. One of my proud things about it is that I've actually tracked my energy use from a gas combi boiler for water and heating in Warwick, half the square meterage of house, to this house, twice the square meterage, night storage heaters and an immersion heater, to this house with a air source heat pump, and then final impact of putting in the batteries and solar panels. And I'm saving about £1,000 a year on electricity bills, and that gives me a return on capital employed of 7%, which I wouldn't be able to get in an ISA or anything else. So I think I'm the only case study that's actually shown what it looks like. So I'm self-sufficient in the summer, generating power in the summer, and then in the winter, of course, I am probably 60% self-sufficient, depending on how miserable and cloudy it is. So that's my experience of doing it. I've done open homes 3 times now, and I'm volunteering for the next one whenever we do it. The retrofit course I've done, useful, and I feel a bit more confident about talking to other people about it, particularly around the issue of insulation. Not insulation, I mean ventilation. I put in mechanical ventilation and heat recovery into this house, and I just thought it was a necessary evil, or a necessary expense because of having internal insulation and mold and all the rest of it. It's in fact ended up being much more than that, and I hadn't appreciated that when I put it in. But the issue of ventilation, I think, is going to be absolutely key with many of the houses I've already visited. Yeah. So I have got, just to summarise the 3 events that I'm doing, I am doing a talk for John in Highgrove on the 17th September. I'm doing a talk here in Pewsey on the 10th of October. That's been advertised in the Messenger, which is the rag that goes out to all the Pewsey parishes. And I'm doing a talk, I think it's on the 24th of October, for the WI and devices. I've got 6 people listed who want me to go and do an energy survey, just an advisor survey, but I've also been given a grant, really topped-on infrared camera, which I've been learning how to use. So I'll be taking that with me, and that really does get the conversations going. As regard the Data Protection Act, I'm okay, provided I don't give anybody's name and address to anybody else. And as regard insurance and liability, for, I don't know, breaking something or, falling over in the dark and smashing something, I'm being covered by the Pewsey Community Area Partnership. So I'm limiting my visits to the Pewsey community area, which I think is about 21 parishes in the Pewsey Vale. So it takes me from Great Bedwin, Little Bedwin, Albourne, all the way down to the road between Devizes and Pewsey. So it's down as far as there. So it'll keep me busy. So I'm ready to go. I've done the advertising, and we'll see how many people turn up. That's me.
That sounds great, Kate. Does anyone have any questions for Kate?
Well, could you just repeat what the event is? I'm just trying to take a couple of notes. What was the event that you've got? You're waiting to see people turn up, Kate?
I've got 17th September in Highgrove with John.
Yeah, Highworth, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Highworth. And then I've got Pewsey, Bouverie Hall on the 10th of October.
Oh, okay. And that's where you're waiting.
And then I've got another one with a WI. It's just a quick one of 30 minutes, sort of little presentations. They do a kind of fair in October. I'm sorry, I haven't got can't remember what the date is. So I'm doing that. I've also contacted the WI here in Pusey and the University of the Third Age, and I'll get in touch with them as well.
Brilliant. No, that's great, Kate. I'm really interested to see how you're getting into the community there. I think you were also thinking of talking to school children, were you not?
Yeah, well, I've done. One of the interesting things is, as well as flooding here in Pusey, that have come to pass. Nobody thought it ever would flood because climate change didn't exist, you know. It has flooded. But what's also happened is that we've ended up on the BBC satellite as a high, moderate to severe risk of heat stress, because many trees have been cut down, everything's been covered in tarmac, no trees have been planted because they cost money to maintain. And so what I've done is sort of got a guiding coalition together, and the youth group are going around with a whole set of maps marking where they would like trees planted. So there is a lot of money at the council. As long as you've got need of 25 trees or a big hedge, you will get them planted and 15 yens maintenance grant. So I'm on it.
Good. Brilliant. Thank you, Kate. Right. Shall I come to Matthew next from Bradford-on-Avon?
Yep. So I'm part of Climate Friendly Bradford-on-Avon. I've got a similar-ish sort of personal experience to Kate in that we've done various things to the house that we live in over the years. Excuse me, I've got COVID at the moment, so I'm likely to cough a bit. And over the last 5 years, I've become more aware of the need to think about how energy efficient a house is. So we had to replace our roof because it started leaking, and that gave us, we haven't got a loft space. So replacing the roof gave us access to the top of the roof to put insulation in, which there was, well, the house was built in 1968 and it had a radical 1/2 inch of rock wool when it was built. Yeah, wow. So now we've got 230 millimeter of foam, rigid foam. And like Kate, we managed to track our energy usage over the change, and a combination of the insulation and the reduction in drafts by trying as hard as possible to seal around the eaves and verges, which I think probably the contractor didn't do as well as he could have done, but nonetheless, it's a lot better than it was. We've got annual consumption now from about 16.5 megawatts to 11 megawatts.
Why?
Yes. And again, like Kate, I've got PV and a couple of batteries, so I'm able to run on off-peak power all the time, bridging from the beginning to the end of the day using my batteries. So that's me personally. We've done a couple of events in Bradford-on-Avon. I think the two things, going back to my own personal experience, I think one of the challenges that we've got as working in this area is the huge cost that is involved in upgrading a property from relatively poor to relatively good. Sorry, Kate.
Just to come in on that, again, I've contacted Warm and Safe and the Carbon Saving Energy Trust, CSC. I get all these acronyms. Again, there is stacks of grants available for anybody who's off gas. So that's all of us in the Pusey Vale. And pretty well that's it. And you, for that, can get an air source heat pump, lots of insulation, and solar panels. And they are desperate for people to apply.
Yep. I agree. I think the challenge is that it's a psychological obstacle as much as anything else. People think it's going to be expensive; they don't even bother thinking about it. And
the applications have been such a nightmare up until now.
Even with grants, again, we've got a peculiar heating system. We've got a warm air heating system, ducted warm air heating system. So I can put a heat pump in, but it's going to cost about 8 to 10 grand on top of the grant. So it's not cheap, and so that was the sort of general observation about the financial obstacles that are seen as obstacles. And the other challenge I think that we've had is having it's all very well being trained as a retrofit advisor, but I think the actual training that most of us lack is in how to engage in the community, which is a generic skill set and not necessarily widespread. Certainly, I feel that I'm quite happy talking to people, but it's getting access to the groups to actually have that conversation.
So I found the University of Third Age and sorry for interrupting, and WI really useful.
Yeah,
because they've already got big lists.
yeah.
They're also looking for speakers.
Yeah. It's how you that's a particular cohort again, isn't it?
Yeah, but they talk to their neighbours.
Yes, that's true. That's true. Yeah. Right, so that's me. Not talking anymore.
Can I make just one observation before we move on? One of the innovations that's come through is, you know, those ventilation systems you see in buildings, which are air conditioning units and heating units. I can't remember what they're called. They're about 650 quid to install.
Splits,
they're not
mini splits.
Mini splits. A number of people have put them in here in Pewsey and in Great Bedwin.
Yeah.
And they've been a huge success. So
Yeah.
they allow you to very, very quickly ventilate and heat.
They don't provide any, generally don't provide any external sourced ventilation. They just pump air around
warm
the room.
air in.
But they do take moisture out of the atmosphere.
Exactly.
They've got a condensing effect.
Condensing effect. So it's one way of getting rid of the damp.
And it's relatively inexpensive if you've got a house that you would have to do major work on. You know, it's about £2,000 a room, and you wouldn't need every room.
And the electricians fit them all the time, so they know how to do it. So you don't depend on a plumber. So it's quick, it's easy, it's relatively cheap.
My daughter's got
up a room very quickly, and they've been a huge success. So just you know, that's just a really, but what we found has been a game changer innovation.
Yeah. No, I just remember Kate talking there has reminded me we fitted an MVHR system as well. With increasing the air tightness of the property, I felt that we had an opportunity with the roof off to run ducting. Which I wouldn't have otherwise had without putting it on the surface and having to box it in and be very ugly. And I think this time of the year it's not a big deal in the summer, but in the winter it makes a big difference. And the other thing, just coming back on your ventilation thing, is that modern heat pumps can run in cooling mode as well.
Yes, I have, mine doesn't do that, unfortunately. But
although you do need some mechanism of taking advantage of that cool. Sort of underfloor heating and radiators don't do a very good job at cooling, and you have the problem of having condensation on surfaces if you get too cool.
So anyway, but I think ventilation is something that when I've gone around houses, I've been quite shocked how, you know, everything's been blocked up and sort of black mold around the bars, and you know, I think it's going to be a real issue. So
and that's going to be the same, however much insulation or whatever you put in.
Well, you don't want to put any more insulation if you've got that.
Well,
and we've certainly found with our own home, because we started doing the obvious stuff of blocking up the holes in the around, you know, improving the windows and actually cutting out some of the major drafts, and now we're immediately getting damp in those areas. Not visible damp yet, but that sort of clammy atmosphere and slightly smelly. You think, because we lived outside, as somebody kindly pointed out to us, one of the assessors, that was ventilating all our moisture away, and now we're closing up the holes.
Houses
really have to upgrade the ventilation straight away.
Houses were built to be porous, weren't they?
Well, not 20 years ago they weren't.
No, they were built to be porous so that the fabric of the property breathed in and out, whatever, and that's how you
I absolutely agree with the older houses, but with a more modern extension, you don't expect that the drafts are doing the ventilation for you. And I think also, Matthew, that Bradford on Avon you're doing quite a lot in retrofit as a group, aren't you?
So myself and Amy Starr have done the retrofit advisor level 3, is it?
Wow. Yeah.
So we're not past 2035 retrofit advisors, but we are able to advise people, and that's one of the things that if we can get involved with the green open homes, then certainly I'd be happy to come along and attend at one of the homes and
Brilliant.
offer an advisory service, visits and whatever to people who visit.
That would be lovely, because we're hoping to promote advisors who are happy to visit, like yourselves, to promote them as part of the event as well, so
Yeah.
people become aware that your services are available. And I think also you're going into thermal imaging, is that right? Like
They have. I must be honest and say I'm a little bit ambivalent about thermal imaging. Having we had a cheese. People come across cheese.
Yeah.
We had a cheese survey way back, and that was quite useful. But I can see that the fact that you were using the thermal imaging in conjunction with the pressure, that made it tell you something. Whereas if you're just taking a picture of a wall and it's cold or hot, doesn't actually, I mean, it tells you it's cold or hot, but it doesn't tell you how cold or how or really see where stuff is happening. I think you need to combine it with a pressure test as well in order to get something meaningful out of it. But that's my view.
Yeah, certainly.
I think for me,
we found an enormous amount about our house by having the combined test, but it was about £600. And, you know, I think if one's actually going to have building work done, it's money worth spent. I mean, we actually found there was a wall, what looked like a wall, and was actually just a piece of plywood that was tacked on above a window.
Yes, to the outside.
Painted over.
Kate's got a hand up.
Can I just say that I found the thermal imaging camera a very good way of making the problem visible, and that, you know, people can really see where the thatch is thin and the soffits are leaking and the windows, and where I mean, one house I took photographs of, you could actually see the radiators through the outside wall. You know, just nothing.
Suggesting that you might be losing a bit of heat.
Yes, exactly. But it got the conversation going, you know, so it was really useful. But the other thing is that the CSE are offering their assessments as a discount at the moment.
Yeah.
So there's a cost for a 1-room, 2-room, 3-room, 4-room, 4-bedroom house, and it's graded, so it's not £600 flat. It depends on your number of rooms.
And something, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah. So I wish I mean, I would have loved to have had a proper survey here, but they hadn't been invented yet when I started. So yes, worth every penny.
No, well, thank you. Matthew, Phil. Let's hear from Swindon.
Yeah, I'm a retired radiation protection scientist, and I'm fairly new to sort of trying to get involved in climate stuff. So as you see, I'm with SCAN in Swindon. Robbie Easter and myself are currently doing some training with CSE on how to be advisors. So we did an initial online course, and we're now having monthly mentoring sessions with someone called Sonia Brzezinski. So that's going okay. I think the sessions are sort of driven by us, so I'm groping around as to whether we're actually asking the right questions and doing the right thing. So it will be good to be able to make more contact with people in this group who've been doing it for a while. Where that's going is so one or two of you might have heard at the beginning, we had a stand at a repair cafe on Saturday, and it's the first time that we've been out and about. I think we weren't just looking at future proof. We we were advertising scan as well, looking for more members. Sorry, weren't just advertising retrofit. But we want to expand that and look for more and more places to try and spread the word. Julian has got a contact with someone from U3A now, haven't you, Julian?
Mm-hmm.
So we'll be following that up. Another thing on the horizon is called the Festival of Tomorrow, which is happening in Swindon in February. And it's a sort of science-based thing that is trying to promote public involvement and particularly youth involvement in science. And there might be some opportunity of having a stand there. Future-proof have been wanting to know whether there are any events that they could come along to as well. So I'm wondering if the Festival of Tomorrow is one of those examples. Robbie, who's not able to come tonight, is very interested in getting hold of an infrared camera. So any tips and recommendations on that would be very welcome. Oh, the other thing is I've had an email today from Sonia Brzezinski at CSE, who says, bear with, we were thinking of having a group session on Zoom where we invite along all the community groups that we are mentoring through this project. All the groups had the same remit, which is to build knowledge and confidence to give retrofit advice to households. And the purpose of this session would be for groups to share ideas and tips on how to achieve this, including ideas for events, with CSE facilitating the session. So I said, yes, we'd be interested. But at the moment, she's just sort of gauging interest. So I guess we will be interested. So I'll let you know what she comes up with. I think that's probably enough for now, is it, Julian?
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Yeah. My own retrofit experiences, we have got solar panels, which we've had for about 18 months now. And we are generating as much electricity as we use, although our heating is gas. What's interesting is that we switched to a new gas condensing boiler about 2.5 years ago, and it's saving us as much money, if not more, than the solar panels compared with the previous gas boiler. So that's interesting too. Right, I'll shut up.
Thank you, Phil. That's brilliant. I'll come to Dennis from Sustainable Calm, please.
Hi, everyone. Yeah. We done the course, Sarah and myself, who are with the so-called advisors. We are, but we're moving a little bit of caution. We've done the course in April, and we're doing the mentoring now. We've had 3 sessions, which is very, very helpful. It really is, because I don't think the course is quite enough, as good as it was. You're going out to advise people. You've got to come over as correct. So the mentoring is really, really good. We've got a web page that we're organising right now, and we've got flyers printed for 3 events that we've got coming up in basically September, October, and in the autumn. So I think it was a good idea not to rush into it too quick, because retrofitting is an enormous subject. You've only got to look online, and understanding it all for everyone is quite a challenge. Not everyone has got £10,000 to spend, and there's a humongous number of houses It's in the 28, 25 million houses that need to be fixed to really solve the problem. So I think the idea is we need to speak with other people and to get them to come to us and to give them accurate advice. So we got these 3 events. We're also thinking of, and I've made contact with a few of the groups in Calne, just regular groups, and there's quite a lot of them that we can present there. And I think that's going to be helpful. Yeah, I guess on the, yeah, we got 3 events, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, I think I'll leave it to there for the moment. So, thanks.
Thank you, Dennis. It will be great to have details of your events. And then, you know, obviously we can share them throughout the group and throughout WCA. What sort of, are they coming up in September and October? Is that sort of time frame?
Dennis, you're muted.
Dennis, we can't hear you, mate. Dennis, we can't hear you. You're muted.
Yeah, I've done it. Yeah, beg your pardon. Yeah, we've got quite, apologies for that. Yeah, we've got quite a few, the events we got planned is the great big get together on the 14th of September.
Right.
I can send you more the exact details. We've got Derry Hill in October, and we've got a Christmas event in Calne. They're the only 3 events we've got.
So the Christmas event is in September, is it?
No, the Christmas event will be in December for sure. But there's a bit of a question mark about that one. But yeah, in next Saturday, the 14th, there's the great big get together, which is in Calne, and we should be at that one. That's our first event. Derry Hill, October the 19th and 20th, I believe. And so they're the only 3 events we got at present.
Brilliant.
And
Thank
I don't
you.
think it's such a bad thing to not move too quick till you. I'm looking for more of these mentoring events. I found them very helpful.
May I ask who your mentor is?
He is Elliot Clark.
Right. So sounds as if he might be quite switched on.
Oh, he's more switched on than me, but that's not difficult. So,
Thank you very much.
cheers.
Richard, let's come to you.
Oh, yeah. So where to start, really? Yeah, done quite a lot on our own house. Early adopters of PV, but we've also done quite a lot on a house that we rent out as well. So got quite a lot of, you know, experience on that. We have a very happy tenant, I know that, who's been in the house for over 10 years. So that says something, doesn't it?
Mm.
So we did, yeah, PV, heat pump and external wall insulation for her, which has made a massive difference to her and her children. And we've just done PV and some more PV and battery on our own house. We've also got a heat pump. I'm one of the trustees of our village hall, and we've been looking to try and do some stuff there over the years. And we've just had one of those surveys, the free surveys that were offered by 7Y, waiting for the report on that. which will be interesting. But we had, in fact, previously had an energy kind of efficiency report done, which we paid for. So it'd be interesting to compare the two and see what see whether there's any other recommendations there. I mean, the Village Hall is quite an interesting building in that it was built in 1875, and so is quite a challenge, I suppose, in terms of energy leaking out of it. But then, of course, it's a village hall, so it's, you know, our village hall isn't used very much either. So it's interesting looking at a building like that compared to a domestic building, and you know, do you do things differently because of the different usage? And I think that's one of the things I picked up from the course, was it's really, really important to understand the needs of the occupants of the premises, because that probably should be one of the biggest factors in driving what kind of advice they get and whether they're doing the right things for them. In terms of engaging with people, I mean, what we tend to find is that people kind of know that we're eco warriors in the local area, so they tend to come and ask us about stuff and expect us to know all the answers, which of course we don't. But I mean, that's quite useful. I mean, we've tried to sort of help people on a kind of personal basis. You know, an elderly couple had moved into a new house, and we're asking our advice. But again, you know, you've got to tailor that advice, I think, to the people, haven't you? And you know, I had to recommend. You know, they could have done all sorts with this property. I mean, again, I think it's probably a 60s, 70s, you know, bungalow, which you could do an awful lot too. But you sort of think, in terms of the payback time for this particular couple, it's not going to be worth it. Not for them, you know, and they're not wallowing in money. And you sort of think, do you know what? I don't recommend you do anything. You know, you've done what you need to do to make yourselves comfortable, but it's going to be for the next occupants to do the things that really need doing to this house. Kate.
Yeah, I mean, did you consider doing a split air pump for them?
Yeah, that would be one thing, but they've actually they've just put a wood burner in.
Oh right, okay.
So you sort of think, well, do you know what?
Yeah.
And they're quite a traditional couple, you know.
Okay, you've done the right thing.
Yeah, I'm really comfortable with the advice I gave, even though it kind of goes against everything which, you know, we're trying to achieve.
I know.
But I just raised that story because, and the one about the village hall, because I think, you know, every situation is different, isn't it?
Yeah.
But I think what Matthew said earlier about it, you know, getting the word out, I think that's going to be our biggest challenge, isn't it? Because I think we're well networked now, aren't we? If we don't know the answer, we can go to places that can provide answers. I mean, for example, in our village, I discovered that we've actually got, I'll probably get this wrong, but is it retrofit assessors, the ones that can do the survey? Yeah, it's an assessor, isn't it? That's right. We've got them in the village.
Fantastic.
So if you like, the way I would probably approach a project for, you know, for a household would be to say, look, I can give you some general advice based on, you know, my personal experience, the course I've done. But if you want to take this further, I think you need to get in touch with, you know, with Olivia and her son, who are both trained assessors. Get them in, and they will be able to give you the actual technical advice that I probably am not qualified to give you. So that's quite a useful contact. But in terms of getting the word out, I'm thinking that probably things like parish magazines, things where we can put like an op-ed in, just something brief. Kate.
Yeah, so one of the things that I haven't got one on me actually, but the CSC and Wiltshire County Council have done a very nice postcard, and on it is a thermometer that responds to air temperature. and it's got the warm and safe telephone number on the back of it. And the thermometer says too cold, just right, too hot. And they're super for putting through letterboxes and giving out at the end of talks. I've been handing them around to my neighbours, and they were quite shocked about how too hot they got over the end of July, worryingly so, actually. So if I've rung Wiltshire Council a couple of times now saying, can I have another box of, 100 or 200? I can really recommend them. They prove very popular.
Oh, that's a real pearl, Kate. Thanks for that. Yeah,
I'll go and get one, and I can show you.
Magic. Yeah, that's great. So yeah, Parish Magazine. I mean, potentially, I think one of the issues is potentially, how do we get people to come to a talk about retrofit? Are people going to give up an evening to come and have a talk about retrofit? I don't know.
Or they'd be like me and doesn't even know what the word means.
Exactly. I think,
I can't believe I'm unique.
No, I think this is perhaps, one of our biggest challenges is the communication, the engagement, as Matthew pointed out. And I think that's that's perhaps going to be our biggest challenge.
I think one of the important things that we can all do is tell stories.
Yeah.
We can't pretend to have the expertise that, professionals do, but we can tell stories about people who've done it and have been successful. And we can understand the stories that come back to us where people say, oh, well, my next door neighbour had it and it cost him a fortune. My next door neighbour had it and he was never warm again, or he got damp. Understanding that story and saying, oh, yes, I've heard of that, but the person I know, even if you make it up, they found the issue was that their fan wasn't working or something, which is going as normal people telling stories. And as Richard said, he's recognised in the village. This is why community is so important. You will have a massive influence that goes beyond your expertise to change.
Yeah, I think that's right. So I think, it's exciting as well that, we have this, we have lots of people now, relatively, in this room now, and also the ones that couldn't come. We've got people who really want to make a difference here, which is great. That's a great starting point. And it's just finding the niche ways to get the word out there it's to the people who need to hear it as well. I guess, thought about this quite a lot, because there are segments, there are people that really need this help. And there are other people whose needs should be being taken care of by, for example, the local council, if they're in council accommodation, their housing association, if they're in housing association property. But I'm thinking there's probably a lot of private renters out there, which is a very difficult situation unless there are legislative changes to force landlords to do what we've done for our tenant. Those are the ones which I worry about, because those are the ones that are suffering from the high bills, the poor quality housing, and the fact that it's not their property to be able to do something about. I don't know what the answer to that is, but if they had the information about what could be done, perhaps that would empower them to a degree, to be able to ask for changes, to improvements. Maybe I'm being naive, but I know not all landlords are like us. But
as Jackie pointed out, we do have a new government, and they're making noises about in this area, affecting a whole range of areas that we're covered by discussions. There was an interesting document I don't know, does anybody get the Wiltshire newsletter?
From the council.
From the council. There's a document called Securing the Future of Council Housing, which is primarily focused on funding, because over the last 15 years, housing funding has been slaughtered. Basically, they've had the rents that they can charge cut, and the responsibilities increased, and there's a gaping hole in the all local authorities' housing budgets for council housing, and as a result, they're having to consider selling off housing in order to fund work on the remaining council housing. And basically, that document is quite a large document, but it's talking. If you read the first bit of it, it tells you what they're going for. And it does mention privately owned social housing in there. It refers to it as something that needs to be addressed.
I do think retrofit has two sides. WCA obviously is a climate change organisation, and our primary job is to reduce release of carbon into the atmosphere. So that's what we're here for. But actually, retrofit has two sides. One side is alleviating misery, ill health, unhealthy homes. But the other side is to reduce the carbon. And in many ways, that's persuading people, and I must count ourselves in this. We've got oil-fired central heating. We had a coal-fired Aga. We kept warm by horrible electricity bills and lots of oil, but we didn't appreciate we were probably about half the emissions from our village, let's be honest. But at that point, we were both working full time, had no time to even think about anything else, and we can afford it. Now, we've made major changes, and we'll continue to do so. But actually, to reduce the carbon coming out of Wiltshire, we need to help change the minds of a lot of people who can afford to use oil and gas and not retrofit their homes, because they don't need to financially. And they're the ones who are going to make the biggest difference on.
Well, I don't know. Is that the case? Devil's advocate. My thinking is that numerically, poor housing at the lower end, the cheaper end of the market, is much more voluminous than the odd large house in Pewsey. And I suspect that it probably balances out, and actually the big savings are to be had in massive programs to upgrade lots of smaller houses, rather than upgrading houses of people who can afford to, as I can, who can afford to do it on their own.
I think when you look at the impact, people who can't, who are in that impoverished state are not actually spending money on electricity. They're just
they're going
old
cold
and ill,
Yeah.
And often their consumption will stay the same once you've retrofitted their home.
It's constrained by pounds in the pocket.
So it's a benefit to the community, but it's not necessarily as big a benefit to the
carbon budget
footprint situation. So it's an interesting topic.
It is.
Can I come in again, guys? So just pick up on this topic. I mean, Pewsey, we've got sort of great estates of similarly designed houses in great rows. And I'm quite interested in the community retrofit project. So if you've got the thing sorted out for one, you roll it out fast for the other 50 in the street. So I'm starting to sort of chase up what that might look like. I mean, some of the houses in the same row are private landlords, some are private owned, some are ex-council, some are social housing, blah, blah. But, basically it's the same bloody design. Just
they were all built as one, weren't they?
Yeah, take out. Well, there's no gas in Pewsey, so everybody's on oil. So, you ought to be able to just plug and play, as my next door neighbours have in a thatched house. Just put in an air source heat pump into the radiator system. But it's learning how to do that on one, and then learning to do on the rest. Here's the card I was telling you about. I don't know if you can see that. You see it's a nice temperature, and I'm 21 at the moment, which is nice and comfy, without any heating on, I assure you. And so it just sort of gives you too hot, too cold, too warm. And then on the reverse side, it's got the number, cold and warm Wiltshire. Sorry, it's reversed on my camera, and the list of people to phone and what's available. So it's a very nice little, reminder. If you're sitting down here at 18 degrees, and it goes down to 9 degrees C, you are too cold. You need help.
Unsafely
Not mucking
cold.
about. Here's the number. Phone somebody up.
That's really helpful, Kate. I think
really nice.
Could all do with those, and certainly for any events that we're at.
Exactly. So as I said, I've phoned the council twice now, but I haven't had a response. And I might talk to my monthly tutor and see if she knows how to get them from CSC.
And just on community retrofit, I don't know if any of you are aware of the project in Balsall Heath in Birmingham.
Yes, yeah,
But
exactly.
they are amazing. That's just true community retrofit done by the community. All the faith groups and the groups within the community got together. It was a very deprived area, and they've actually extended retrofit beyond the houses. They're making their whole environment nice as well.
Community.
So, yeah, highly recommend them. And that was started by an architect who he was the first, I think he was the first one to fully retrofit and retrofit his home to carbon zero.
Wow.
So,
wow.
and he's
I feel
followed
guilty.
on
I haven't
from
done that, but that's
well, he was an architect. He's an architect. Lovely. Nick Want, may we come to you?
Oh yeah, thanks for inviting me to come along today. Appreciate it. Great to hear the angles you guys are all coming from and what you've been able to achieve with your own homes and everything. So before I tell you the things you already know, how familiar are you as a group with the National Self-Build and Renovation Centre in Swindon? So Kate, I know you are.
I've been there. I've seen
okay.
it and been around it, used it.
Okay, brilliant. So, like,
we were there at the weekend for a talk. Julian and I went along. First time I've been though.
Okay, great. How did you find it?
It looked interesting. I need more time to look around. The talk was about straw insulation. Is that right, Julian? Straw insulation and
straw bale plus a little bit of retrofit from some people at Bristol, which was using hemp plaster and things like that. But it was a little bit niche. But it was by the
that's great, isn't it?
It was by the AECB group leader in Wiltshire, which is partly why I went along. But then we didn't really have time to talk.
Great,
because we had to retro.
Yeah, they've got their conference at the end of September, which we're hosting.
Yes,
which would be really good.
I think
which is Retrofit Now conference. Should be very good. But I'm not here to plug them. But yeah, probably of interest to this group, I would have thought. So yeah, I'm the sustainability manager at the NSBRC. Sorry, another acronym, but I don't want to say National Self-Build and Renovation Centre every single time. But essentially, ran into a few of you wonderful people at an event in Trowbridge a few weeks back, where we were all talking about things in this space and how we can kind of green homes, what we can do in that space, and started sparks flying a little bit. So yeah, really just wanted to understand a little bit more about what you guys do, which is great to hear that. But actually, in terms of the green open homes, I was just intrigued about what opportunities there might be for collaboration in that space as well. So when you come to your next event week, which before I start trying to give any suggestions from my end, I'd be curious to kind of hear what's already kind of what wheels are already spinning in that space, because I might be throwing ideas that you've already had or that might not fit at all. So I will zip my mouth on that for a moment and see what you guys want to share. That I'm just really intrigued to see how we can collaborate. That's my short intro. That's probably enough for now, unless anyone's got any questions.
Yep. No, I was going to say, I think one of the key problems that we had, and I see more broadly, is the lack of impartial, disinterested information about what you can do and prioritizing. And if you talk to a heat pump installer, he'll want to install a heat pump, which is probably the right answer, but will he install the best heat pump or the most appropriate heat pump for the situation that you find yourself in? And will he say, well, you also need to look at MVHR, or you need to also look at and he probably won't, because he doesn't install those and he's not interested. So you do need the whole, well, it's past 2035, isn't it? You need that whole raft supporting the process that leads you through a retrofit. And it might be.
Yes.
I mean, there seems to be. I don't know. My feeling is that if you want to make the biggest impact on your carbon footprint, then putting a heat pump in is probably the most effective way of doing that, irrespective of whether you also do any other retrofit activity, because that will move your carbon footprint from gas or oil
Yeah.
to electricity, which is
Yeah,
becoming
no, I think it's-
increasingly green.
Yeah, it's interesting because there will be people with, as has been alluded to in this conversation already, people will have a different reason. One person's reason might be another for why they could be retrofitting or self-building in any case. But actually, whether it's trying to save some pounds in your wallet or whether it's trying to reduce your carbon footprint, actually the solution a lot of the time is going to be pretty aligned. But it's just understanding that, isn't it, and thinking.
Yeah.
Well,
and finding a disinterested party to advise you as to how to achieve it.
Yeah, so we do try to solve for that as much as we can, and we pride ourselves on our 3 I's of informing, inspiring, and offering impartial advice. And we do make sure that any given time we've got at least one independent expert at the centre who isn't affiliated with any of our partner companies, and they can kind of give a general view, but they will not give you all the answers. They will give you an opinion and a lead, because there may not be one right answer. But I think also what we try to do is, because impartiality it's hard to get it exactly right. So sometimes what we'll try and do is we will try and put multiple different companies who are trying to sell their products, essentially, we'll put them in the same conversations and say, tell us, and have a conversation with each other in front of people. And actually, people can make their own minds up based on the information that's being shared. So we do our best to solve for the impartiality bit, despite the fact that our revenue comes from our exhibitors. But we do pride ourselves on our values as well, and putting that impartiality at the forefront. I will, before I said I was ending my intro, there's one thing I did want to mention. I don't know if this is what Julian's about to say with his hand up quickly, but it's a project we are working on. Is a brand new exhibit that we're going to launch early next year, hopefully early next year. It should be in January, and it's going to be called the Retrofit Zone. So it should be. Okay. Yeah, which is, I think I'm talking to the right audience for something like this. So we do already have a renovation house, which is brilliant, and is a great educational exhibit already. But we want something that's a bit more specific and that is really up to date, and is going to solve for people who are maybe coming in, again, as was mentioned in this conversation, people might not know what retrofit means, or they might think it's not for them. So I think what we are hoping we can create is something that on our quieter days can be an exhibit that works as a self-serve kind of journey for somebody to come in and have a look, and it's their entry point to think about maybe not getting all the right answers, but at least understanding what are the right questions they should be asking, and trying to understand what order might they consider doing things in, or what things do they consider about their own property or about their circumstance, before actually diving in and making decisions. So we're keen not to be solution focused in that. But actually on our busier days, there will be events there, and there will be experts, and there will be tours going on and things like that. So yeah, I'm leading the project on that. I am not the forefront expert, but I have a panel of experts around me. But I think to this point of having a disinterested party, I'm there to make that a balanced educational exhibit with the consumer journey in mind. And some of the experts that I'm calling upon actually are representing companies who have goods and services. So just trying to find that right balance. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nick. That's extremely interesting, and thank you for coming. I think the self-build angle and the home renovation is absolutely vital in the retrofit world, because you're probably aware of quite what the new build strategy is, and we don't have enough builders to do what we need at the moment, and we're going to have a lot more homes in the pipeline. And also there's an immense amount of retrofitting needing to be done. So sharing skills, upskilling people, and making sure they have as much information as possible to do it properly.
And we're very aware that our primary audience, or the majority of our visitors who come through our doors and are looking at their own projects, are people who are in that camp of they can afford to do this. And I think this is part of what we're keen to do with this new exhibit is to broaden our reach beyond that audience. So obviously, we want to continue to have that audience, but we actually want to be a bit further reaching, and we want to make sure that we're part of the broader solution.
Interesting.
On a national scale.
In Birmingham, I think it's Civic Square are doing retrofit street by street. And what they're doing is they're training one resident in the retrofit that is suitable for that street.
Right.
So they can then help the residents do their whole street.
Yeah.
You know, they've had one
I think this
and then they can do it themselves.
This I hear that I've heard this a lot whilst I've been planning towards this planning for this exhibit, and actually it's finding the tradespeople that have the skills is a huge kind of barrier for people. So we are trying to engage with different kind of educational bodies who are already doing great work in the space, and just seeing how we can collaborate as well, because actually if we can do our part to join up great new tradespeople who maybe have new people or people who have been in the trade a long time but have learned some new ways of doing things. If we can put together those people with the companies who are providing solutions and the people who want them for their homes, then we're doing our job in that case.
Brilliant.
It's getting people to see the market, tradesmen to get to see the market, isn't it? I know
they may need a different motivation than
yeah. So the guy who looks after our gas boiler is convinced that hydrogen is going to save the world, and you don't need to worry about heat pumps. You just carry on with your boiler; it'll work. We'll be fine.
Yeah, my brother's a builder, so he keeps me real when I have a chat with him. And it's you know, if I get too much in an echo chamber of thinking everyone wants to save the planet, I'll have a chat with him.
The other obstacle I was just going to highlight that I've seen in some of the sessions that we've run is the disruption, not only the cost. You know, I don't want all that disruption in my house. You know, it's seeing the benefits through that disruption.
Yes, there have been a couple of hands up. Julian's went up and maybe back down, and Dennis is up. I don't know if anyone wants to chime in.
I'm really appreciating that's been absolutely fascinating as a roundup. Obviously we've taken a while, but I think we've learned a lot and actually covered a lot of points in that time. I was just going to come to the actual Green Open Homes side as well. I think I said we've delayed that now to November to give us a chance for all the retrofit team, the advisor team, to be involved, and as much as possible to involve all the local groups, because we organised Green Open Homes basically from scratch last time. Very ambitious programme of getting it out everywhere, and we did with the kindness of strangers and friends. We got 60 homes on the scheme, which was really good across Wiltshire, and we had about 200 visitors. But when we actually looked at it, the majority of the homes were from people in WCA, you know, that we were aware of, and a lot of the visitors were already on their retrofit journey. It was very helpful for them, but we didn't convert many newbies. There were some, but so we've obviously used those ones up. So we've now got to look for more visitors. And ideally more homes, particularly if we look at centres. You know, we had 60 over the county, but you know, there were centres. We had a lot in Bradford because they have a very active association, and similarly in Salisbury. But you know, if you actually look at the cover of the whole area, they would be patchy. So it's to try and get more coverage, and to work out how to attract new people. But also, one of the strengths I felt about the last Green Open Homes is we did a lot of advertising, and there was quite a big awareness in the community, even for the fact that it didn't convert into visitors. I had a lot of people coming up to me saying, "Oh, you were doing that Green Open Homes thing. We were away, or we didn't get round to booking, but really interesting to hear about it." So it did get people thinking. And it has, with all the issues against retrofit, it has the wonderful advantage of telling stories and giving visitors the opportunity to meet people who've actually done it and ask those difficult questions like, are you warm? Is it loud? Are you glad you did it? You know, how big are your radiators? That was one of the questions I always wanted to know, you know, but just that one-to-one. So we want to get out to more people and to involve the group, so they're seeing as, you know, the climate action groups are promoting it.
Jackie, sorry to interrupt
a be a time when it's going to be in the news again.
Jackie, sorry to interrupt a moment. Dennis has had his hand up for a long time. I don't know if you can see him. Dennis, if you've got
I can't see a hand. I'm so sorry. Carry on, Dennis.
Yeah, I did. Thank you.
Sorry.
Something we've not put into practice yet, but I'd like to share with you, is about the term retrofitting. Probably not. We sort of thought it's not a good idea to mention it right away in the intro on a document, or because you want to be talking to regular folk, and most people are not aware retrofitting actually could apply to all sorts of stuff. So questions could be like, are you concerned about rising heating costs? Are you struggling to keep your house warm? Are you confused about heat pumps and solar panels? Yeah, unsure about what options are available to help, and a few more. Then you can perhaps then explain what retrofit is and how it fits into that.
Dennis, I absolutely love you. If you have a look at the WCA home improvement website, you'll see just how much I agree with you on that, because that's how we set the website up, as an information centre. And you won't find retrofit in until you're about 3/4 of the way down the first page.
Very good, but I'm sure that's not the case.
But that is what I'm just saying is your message is absolutely right, and those are the messages we should be spreading. Yeah.
Yeah, I love it. It's the why. Find the why for people.
Exactly. Yeah. So, and there was just one other point I wanted to make about making heat pumps quite a strong topic for the green open homes. Is I think we've just touched on the fact that boiler, unless a company is just doing air source heat pumps, they're unlikely to recommend it as a boiler choice. Certainly that's been my personal experience.
Yeah.
And I think partly that's because the government have not been really publicly behind it. There's been mixed messages, like with the hydrogen boilers and so on. And the other thing is, when you look at the satisfaction ratings, it depends how you look at it. There was a survey done by Nesta a couple of years ago, and they surveyed people who'd had heat pumps put in, and there was a 75% satisfaction rating, which is excellent. You know, people were really glad they'd had it done. But then when you look at the 25%, if you're a boiler installer and 1 in 4 of your people come back with complaints, and you've been putting oil and gas in for 10 years and you've had hardly any complaints, which boiler are you going to choose as a businessman? You know, and interestingly, quite a lot of the issues were because people weren't properly trained, it wasn't explained to them how to use the heat pump, or the wrong size had been installed, or, you know, there was they may have been pulled around eventually. But actually, if we can really understand what that 25% issue is, as advisors, we can have those stories ready when people come to us on the stand and said, well, my neighbour says they won't put, you know, then you feel comfortable saying, yes, the evidence is. And yes, at the moment, gas is cheaper, but it isn't going to be for long, because they won't, we're going to stop using gas, you know. So anyway, that's me. So over anybody.
Yeah, me again.
I was just going to come to Julian and ask him to put our Gantt chart up in a minute, just for green open homes planning. But
so yeah, just quickly on air source heat pump. Common thing I
Kate.
get is it must be a con. I don't understand how it works. how you can be getting energy out of air. So one of the things I've been doing is taking my bicycle pump in the kitchen and pumping very hard and trying to get the SGN warm. And
Yes.
then start to understand how it works. But it does seem to be very odd. You know, how can you get
or
heat
refer them
out
to
of
the
cold
refer them to the refrigerator.
Yeah, but even then, you know, surely there's a little heater in there, isn't there, somewhere? You know, there used to be on old gas fired fridges that we had in Africa. You lit a flame at the bottom of the fridge, you know. So there's all that confusion. It just seems like magic. So I think what is very useful when you go to the National Self-Build and Renovation Centre is the actual demonstration of one working. You know, so there isn't an element and there isn't gas, and it actually works in the house there. But I was completely bemused until I clicked, you know, what it was actually doing.
Yeah, latent heat of condensation. The presence of Trustmark and other quality assurance certifications is also something that helps, because if you're a Trustmark certified installer, you have to follow certain guidelines as to how you go about the installation process, and the level of satisfaction that you get is measured. So I think that those are things that are worth pointing out to people, that you can get some level of confidence by the presence of that standard.
Okay, so this is Julian's just going to pop up for us the plan to just sort of show what we're looking at. I have to confess that I spent about half an hour with my husband trying to work out how we could put this up, and I couldn't, so I asked Julian to do it for us.
You're muted, Julian.
Yeah, here we go. So if we have a look at this, obviously we've got 10 weeks till the 7th of November when we hope to be asking people to open their homes. And we're already into the first week. One thing I would love your help with is letting us know any events that your group have scheduled so that we can fit those into the yellow line along the top. And then obviously that's a good opportunity to promote Green Open Homes and share ideas between us as to what goes on those stands for retrofit, and, you know, working with CSE and so on. So this week we're just firming up on the proposal of what we do, and looking at making sure we've got insurance for the project, and looking at the booking system. Now, the booking system we used last time was using the Green Open Homes website, which did work quite well. But we're also, just to make life complicated, we'd also like to make sure as many of our homes as possible who have heat pumps also go on to the find a heat pump scheme or visit a heat pump scheme with Nesta, because that allows people to visit all the year round, whereas obviously Green Open Homes is more for just a specific event. So that would be great as an opportunity to highlight that. And I do feel that might be a bit more of an entry level for people going, oh crikey, they've just said we should have a air source heat pump, or I could look at, and then that would come up in a search, whereas looking for a Green Open Home is more of a sort of perhaps an esoteric search. And then and also engage retrofit advisors. Well, that's you lot. So, and getting, you know, looking at the areas you cover, what you're doing, and, you know, how you're interested in Green Open Homes. And that will continue. You know, obviously we'd really like to get you involved in the project. Half the team that organised the last Green Open Homes are no longer available this time. They're doing other things. So at the moment, it's mainly me and Julian, I think. So we'd really like some help. We'll look to make sure the current homes are happy to still be on it, and look for them to go on to Nesta. And then we'll start communicating out. Really good idea about communicating to parish councils and looking to get into the parish magazines. And we will do what we can on social media. Our social media guru is no longer available. She's moved abroad. So if you know anybody who's good on social media, we would absolutely love your help, because I certainly am not. But putting posts out and encouraging our group member groups for the areas to also promote the event. And your work in retrofit, you know, again, it's just reaching more people. And then we're also going to look to get into all the parish newsletters and any other newsletters or local communications that get popped through Fleeters letterboxes or emailed out. Would just be amazing to get it out on there. And then basically that promotion continues up to where we get started on the 9th of November. We have quite a lot of support for the hosts to make sure they're happy with what they're doing. And we do have hosts who are happy, like Kate, bless her, to talk about the experience of having people into your homes. We've also offered last time the WhatsApp opportunity of a WhatsApp walk round, which Kate very kindly did for those people who don't want to travel distance or just, you know, are quite happy to do it remotely like that. That does do and offer another opportunity. I'm also hoping that we might get people just sharing their retrofit journey. They might not feel happy about opening their home up, but if they could write a piece or send us an email we could use as quotes, that would again share stories, you know, and there's many different stories we have, you know, from the different backgrounds, different types of houses, different retrofit journeys. The more it empowers us to share the, you know, the word out there. So, and then what we did last time was that some of the hosts generously were happy to remain on the list by appointment. So the more people we can do, that's amazing. That's helpful. It's also helpful for you as retrofit advisors, because you can say, oh, Mrs. So-and-so number 3, if I have a chat with her, she's happy to show you around her home. That can then continue as a personal relationship. And as I say, from the heat pump point of view, if they've got onto the Nesta scheme, then they will be available all the time. So thank you, Julian. Let's go back to where we were. Yeah. Bless you. So what are your feelings about that? Feelings and suggestions.
One thought I had is whether there's any mileage in engaging with local architects to see whether they had any buildings that they would like to put forward.
That's true. What I didn't mention is that I have drafted a letter to, after the last Green Open Homes, we helped CSE compile a Wiltshire retrofitters directory, which I'm sure you're all fully aware of. It's not on the CSE site. You have to know it exists. It is well hidden. But I've actually compiling a communication for all of them to promote the event, and also ask if they have any, certainly the people who have the installers of heat pumps, if they could share the details to the people they've installed heat pumps for. Presumably they won't share it with people who weren't happy, because they wouldn't want that spread. But they might share happy homeowners, and that might be another source. And also just ask for a bit of feedback from them. So just in general about retrofit and heat pumps. But architects, brilliant. Yep, good thought. Anyone else? How are all those brain cells going?
So I was wondering, what does the event week itself, what does that look like? Are there specific things going on during that week, or is it just that's the main time to go and visit the different homes? Yeah,
that's all the homes go up on the Green Open Home site. And that has like a little thumbnail picture and a description, usually the story of the owner, what their journey is and what they have to offer. and then people
I've seen the
can
existing one. It's great.
yeah, they can make
Just wondering if
appointments
there's
to
anything.
visit there. Yeah, so we're highlighting that. Last time we had, as part of the campaign, we had some really lovely hosts like Kate, who did a video to camera just on a small topic, just showing what they'd done. I mean, obviously Kate showed how much money she'd saved, and that was a great thing. Other people were saying how much warmer they were, and how stood by the heat pump and said how quiet it was and how proud they were. As you say, no mention was made of the word retrofit. It was they were all advantages, and we would hope to share those again.
Can I just say, I think November is a much better time of year to do it, because the heating will be on.
Yeah.
When we did it last time, it was spring and a very warm day, and I had my air source heat pump running just to show off how loud it was. But we were all sweltering, from 23. So I think November would be a better time. So much better idea.
Yeah, I mean, it's tricky in that it's not the best time to go out, but
no, but exactly.
But they people may also be feeling cold in their own homes, so that
exactly might like cozy up around my kitchen table.
Might be in the forefront of their minds.
They might look forward to seeing a nice warm home for an hour.
Yeah, God saw it breaks down that day for the first time ever. Yeah, good.
So
Jackie, I'm going to have to go quite soon.
Yeah, no, same here.
I had a few thoughts from our end, if this is a good time to interject with those then, because it feels maybe fitting. So one thing I was wondering about is our retrofit house that we have our renovation house that we have at the centre. Put this retrofit zone on my mind. I'm eating, sleeping, and drinking that at the moment. But the renovation house that we have at the moment, I wonder if it would be interesting to, I know it's not a home per se, but to list that as one of the properties. Could be quite cool.
Yeah.
And that kind of allows us to maybe cross-pollinate a little bit with our audiences and bring some of our people to yourselves, and probably vice versa as well.
Yeah.
Hopefully that's mutually beneficial, but I'd be very happy to provide photos and the blurb and anything else that needs to go with that.
Perfect.
I think probably quite an easy win, I hope, both ways.
Yeah.
And I can also kind of give a bit of detail on when we have scheduled guided tours of that house, but actually there will be other times, as long as it's within our opening hours, people can turn up for free anytime, and it's all free. There's no charge for any of it, but you can come along and you can just have a look around at your own pace, or actually you can scan a QR code and get an audio tour that you can pause whenever you want as well, which you can't do quite as much with our guided tours. Our experts don't like being paused, but just if people can't make those times, I think that could be quite cool. And that sort of allows us then, because we've got a little bit of skin in the game, allows us to promote the whole of Green Open Homes through our channels as well.
Brilliant.
Which I think would be cool. So I think hopefully that's an easy win. There are a couple of other bits which maybe you guys might want to go away and think about rather than give me an answer right now. But we do actually, very conveniently timed, on Saturday the 9th of November, we're running again free eco workshop, which is from 10 till 5. And it's essentially a series of 45-minute talks, all focused around sustainable homes, mostly about retrofit, to be honest. So it's very, very conveniently timed. When you guys first, I think Julian said the date. This feels too neat how this has worked out. If you would like to almost include that a little bit in part of your week and almost badge it as part of the week, that would be absolutely fine. And it feels again like a bit of a cross-pollination. An idea I've had that I haven't had approved yet, so this is secret at the moment, and I can't promise it, but I would love if you guys were able to have some kind of presence at that event as well, and kind of maybe have a speaking slot or have a stand. But I don't get to make the decision on that. So I'm floating the idea. I'm putting it out there for you guys, but I will be doing the same at our end next week. It might not be next week actually, because the boss is getting married tomorrow and he's still on a honeymoon. So it'll be once he's back, we'll call on that, because usually those speaking slots are reserved for either our own resident experts or for our paying exhibitors. But I just think it feels like such a natural fit. I don't see it, but don't quote me on that. but I think that would be really cool. It did cross my mind not to put you on the spot, Kate, but actually for you to talk through your case study might be a really nice fit there. But no answers needed today. I'm just putting. And I'm sure there was a third thing I was thinking about. Oh yes, there was. And the reason I've left this one to third is because I think logistically it's a bit trickier than the other suggestions. So it may be that this one is a no-go, but again, I'll put this thought out into the universe and see what you guys think. And I did wonder if it was worth, if it was something you'd want to kind of organize from your end, worth having some kind of little minibus trip that starts and ends at our venue where we have loads of parking and we have a cafe and things like that. And we could actually have an introductory talk that then has a day where it goes around a lot of the houses and people are going together on that. I wondered if either on, I guess it would be Sunday the 10th or Saturday the 16th, assuming you don't want a weekday. Maybe a weekday would be possible. But that's something that we'd be interested in collaborating on. And obviously we would act as a little bit of a venue and we could even figure out lunch potentially if there was a kind of a figure eight done and coming back to us. But no answers needed on that one. I know one's a bit more logistically tricky.
Nick, can I just add a little bit more wackiness to that?
Yeah, I thought I was being wacky. So
yeah, no, you can't beat Kate for wackiness. The previous week is half term, and I just wonder whether we could be fast enough to get our act together to put something out for schools to come in a minibus with parents.
Okay.
Because what I'm thinking of there is encouraging the next generation to think about careers in the building trades and retrofit.
So you think bring the whole thing forward a week?
For your visit, your minibus visit. And if they were able to bring parents along as well, particularly parents who might be in the trades themselves, that would be absolutely fantastic. Yeah. The only house that I know that has been fitted up with open panels for people to look at what goes inside internal insulation is a house that the college in Trowbridge have built. I can't remember where it is, but they have built a house which is to demonstrate to the trades all these different techniques for retrofitting.
Yeah.
So I'm not quite sure that it's the house when I went and saw it, 4 years ago in the NHSBR was, very similar to my little house in London. It was, 2 up, 2 down cottage and very sort of dilapidated, and then you were doing it up. But I wasn't really conscious of the eco-friendly retrofits going on inside it.
Yes.
But that's what people want to see. What's internal insulation mean? What does putting, 225 mil of rock wool into your roof look like? It's making it.
And what difference does it make?
And what difference does it make? Yeah. How tricky is it? That's the kind of thing. But they have got this house in Trowbridge that they've set up for the apprentice code designers to go and have a look. But it would be nice, it's seeing it, it's making this stuff visible. Because of course, my house now, you can't see a bloody thing, can you? I mean, you can see the vents for the my radiators are radiators, and you can't see what's being done. But anyway, that's just an idea.
I think the renovation house we have at the centre does a fair amount of that, and also because it's a house within a building. Yeah. For visitors, you're not getting rained on, you're not getting so that's quite nice. Yeah. So you do get those kind of
getting school kids engaged, and my experience of doing the other climate change things around Pusey is you get the kids engaged, the parents get engaged.
So I think in doing that a week earlier for me is no problem at all. To be honest, between the 2 weeks makes very little odds.
We'll just do both.
To me.
Do both.
I said we'll just do both. One for kids and one for grown-ups.
Yeah, no,
I'm
that's
feeling
great.
terribly aware that it's now 25 to 9 and I feel really guilty. All I can say is, from my point of view, it's been fascinating. I hope it has been for the rest of you. I would really love some feedback as to, if we go back to the lead training and being retrofit advisors in the community, what have you learned from each other? What support do you think you could do, you and your area could do with, that you've heard of other groups are having, or that you've blue skied and thought that would be a really good idea, that we can then try and get into the group. I know I spoke to Amy earlier on, who was unable to come, and one thing she's pointed out was she felt, because she has done quite a lot of additional retrofit training, but she feels that she knows a lot about retrofit, but what she doesn't really understand is how to communicate it to people. And that maybe we could all benefit for some communication training as to how, you know, how to tell those stories, how to, you know, help people on the journey.
And
So
it's
that would
getting
be one
access,
thing.
getting access to people to actually be able to convey a story, isn't it? It's how do you go about it's a communication strategy, isn't it?
Yeah.
And nothing to do with retrofit.
Yeah. So that would be one thing we could perhaps look at as a group. I think thermal imaging is something that, you know, some of us know more about than others. You know, some at the beginning of the journey, some have been doing it already, but maybe that is a really good entry level and communication tool, as well as, you know, helping people understand what's going on in their house. And maybe we can look at more of that. And any other suggestions? I'm hoping that we can communicate with the other members on the team who weren't able to make it tonight. Either they can sit through an hour and a half, or we'll do a summary of the main points, and that maybe we can now meet up again in about 2 weeks, see how we're getting on, looking at the Green Open Homes progress. But any ideas, please think of 3 impossible things before breakfast, because they're probably going to be the best ideas. I very unfortunately opened my mouth and said 2 words last week. They were Dorset COP. Those of you at the meeting on Wednesday will now know we're planning a Wiltshire COP. So you never know, the power of words and the power of ideas can just take flight sometimes. So, you know, the minibus flying around Swindon may be followed by minibuses flying around doing tours of Great Bedwin and Salisbury. You know, who knows? Let's have a think about it. But again, thank you all for coming. I'll share, I'm sure Julian will be very clever, and we'll send a follow-up email with minutes and the Gantt chart as well. And then just please keep those ideas coming, and talk to your colleagues who are working in groups. You know, this is an inclusive thing, because retrofit isn't just about home improvements, it's about improving people's well-being, health, community, and developing an industry that we desperately need. We need a building industry that's doing the right job to build the future. So it's all connected. Bless you. Thank you very much.
Richard?
Communicate through the WhatsApp chat with all this stuff so that we've all got access to it?
Ideally, I think if you all got my email, I'll make sure I'll put my email up in the chat as well. If you want to share documents, ideas, case histories, you know, let's just share all this stuff.
Brilliant. Nice to see you all. Thanks.
Cheers.
Thanks, everyone.
Brilliant. Well done.
Yes.
Well done for getting it all
Thanks,
together.
everyone.
Brilliant.
Bye.
Right.
Thank you very much. Cheers, Richard.
My idea, whilst I think of it, are you in touch with Alan, Marion Davis, NADA Community Energy? It's just that they've done some stuff. They're working in this space as well in Tisbury.
Absolutely.
So it would be great to join what they're doing up with the Green Open Homes thing.
I know. I think are they having one this year?
I don't know. I'll find out for you.
Would you mind? Because I think last year when they'd had it sort of like 4 months before.
Yeah, that's right.
And I mean, they're just like a shining example, aren't they?
Yeah.
And he sings as well.
And the other thing is, Jackie, our Green Open Homes is actually an event which is, you know, is on now. What was it? Name already, Ruth. That's right. Yeah, she set up an event from the end of the March event to the end of September. So homes are open, and we have had a couple of inquiries through that, although we haven't promoted it. So you know, the main thing about the Nesta is it's national, you know, it's advertised separately and it's heat pump specific. So, you know, as you say, it comes up. But Green Open Homes is also, you know, that's also all year.
Absolutely.
There
And
are
if we
some
can be,
problems
if
we've got
we
to
can
sort
be
out.
working more with our groups and just having information up all the time in sources, then they will get more visitors.
Exactly. Yeah. Yes. The other thing I didn't get a chance to. All right.
Thank you, Richard. Thank you
See
so
you,
much for
Richard.
coming.
Lovely to see you guys, and thanks
Yeah.
for organising it, Jackie. Much appreciated, and Julian, great work. Thank you.
Cheers, Richard. Okay.
Oh.
Yeah. No, it was great to see what's his name, Mr. Want, as
Yes.
well, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, you know, he's amazing, and yeah, I'm really pleased he's sort of keen to engage with us.
Definitely, so much
I think
energy.
that'll be
So he said
amazing.
he'd like to meet up. I mean,
Nick
absolutely.
Want. Yeah. Did he say he'd like to meet up? Did you
I
say?
thought that was in the email. He was offering to meet up with us.
Oh, okay, right.
Maybe
Oh,
he
I
doesn't
think,
feel
yeah.
he needs to after the talk.
What he was wanting to do was pop over and see Steve's heat pump and my house, which were two on the Green Open Homes thing.
Right.
That's what he initially meant by meeting up, I think.
Oh, okay.
But you know, having had this you know, and I think he's still keen to do that. He wants to see Steve's heat pump
No, fair
arrangement.
enough.
But yeah, I mean,
it
you know,
wasn't
I mean,
you, it was your heat pump.
he's very open, yeah, to yeah, talking and meeting, and yeah, I must admit there are two people now, and I'm completely confused. There's him and there's Jack from Future Proof, and one or the other is in a band that goes to the Vic. And they both look a bit similar, and I met this guy in the Vic, and I wasn't sure which it was. So I'm still going to work that out.
Because obviously
Anyway.
I'd like to have a quiet word with him about it's not his place to make sure that
Oh yes,
he has intelligent people
I'm sure
on there.
I'm sure he'd be very pleased to talk to you, and his phone number is on the email. And
Fine.
you know, I rang him up and he was very happy to talk, and I think he's sort of, you know, reasonably
It may be
flexible
a bit
during working
delicate,
hours.
you know, it might be one of those things of, oh yeah, we had to get somebody's dad in because there was nobody on because it was a football match, or oh, we weren't aware. Because if you're not aware, you need, you know, I mean, we used to have receptionists who told people not to put, what was it, to feed their dog's pal or something, you know. It's just like you just had to quietly take them on one side and say, whatever you think, you keep your own views to yourself. You do not, you know, because you're representing the business when you're behind the desk, basically.
Yes, right. Yeah. And that the Alan Marion Davis thing, we ought to talk to him about whether he wants to, you know, promote that on the Green Open Home side, if it's a Green Open Homes event in there, isn't it? Because
you know, they seem to do amazing stuff. It's just getting them on board, I think.
Yeah. I'm not familiar exactly with what they're doing. I don't know if all their homes were in our Green Open Homes event or not. But
they were on when we very first started the retrofit group. I'm trying to remember. There was the lady who's the lead in NADA, an older lady. I'd recognise her name, but she was in the retrofit group and was part of the planning. But then obviously retrofit then went on to then host the Green Open Home, so it wasn't all the same people.
Yes. Yes. Yeah, that's
I know
another
she was quite reluctant to, you know, she couldn't kind of meet up in Trowbridge or anything. She wasn't happy to travel from there.
Yeah. And that Trowbridge house that Kate talked about with the opening flaps or whatever, it would be good to investigate whether they want to be part of it as well. It would be brilliant to have a college involved, I think. And if they got a demonstration house as well, that would be good, wouldn't it? So that's another thing. I took some notes. I'll share them with you, but what it's worth.
Thank you. It was just lovely to let people who are enthusiastic talk about what they're doing, I thought.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. No, it was interesting because they were more sort of down to earth techie people than I was expecting, really.
Yeah.
which is fine.
I didn't know Phil was a radiation protection advisor. Oh, that was wonderful.
Yeah.
Having been at the mercy of radiation protection advisors running x-rays and two x-ray machines and a CT scanner.
Yes.
We used to get to know ours quite well.
Oh, okay. Right. Yes. Yeah. I just put the link to the document I did in the chat, but it's only a summary of what people said, so it may or may not be helpful. And there's a couple of points on it which may jog memories. Yeah.
I'll try and then I'll do a call to action email to try and then get, hopefully more ideas and more sharings. But the communication idea seemed to go down quite well. Amy had a lot to say, and I didn't really. She thought that her partner would share it, and he didn't. So I didn't. They are doing a lot in Bradford-on-Avon. She's trained and is going to do EPCs, and she's a trained retrofit advisor now. So they're actually offering a lot within Bradford.
Right.
That will be good to share, and I think they'll be able to offer certainly their expertise in their area. Whether they can do it a bit wider as well for green open homes, it would be great. But usually, if you get if you get 10 people in a room, you'll get 10 different ideas, which is just so helpful.
Yeah.
At the start.
That was good. I mean, the sort of feeling I got was we got a good lot of people to help us there, but we probably need to do most of the organising and then sort of give them the things to do. I mean, I don't know if you got that impression as well, or do you think anyone is keen to help organise?
I think what I would hope is that they will front the event.
Yes.
We can say Bradford-on-Avon are doing this, and these are the homes that are open, and they're offering advice here, or they've got this event, because we can spread the events around the green open homes.
Yeah.
Because if it's 2 weeks before, they're just promoting retrofit, but you can go and see book to go and see these homes in 2 weeks' time.
Yeah. I'm sure Phil in Swindon will help to promote and organise, and the rest he's definitely.
And if they promote it out in their local areas.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And in clubs and committees and and newsletters, then that's a lot of our promotion organisations done as well.
Yeah, and I suspect we need to chase one or two of the others that weren't there, because they may also be the best. They're probably the busiest, but also maybe some of the best.
Not attending this meeting is not an excuse for not being part of it.
Yeah. Yeah. So what's our next step then? What should we do? I said,
could we meet again in 2 weeks' time? I think getting a good punchy email out from communication, or WhatsApp, link to a WhatsApp document. How do we do it? Because we don't have email addresses for all the people, I don't think.
Well, we've got emails for most of them, and we've also got the phone numbers in the WhatsApp group for most of them. I think I'm just checking. I think we've got email group as well as our WhatsApp group.
Because it's kind of, if you're already doing a lot in your area, that's absolutely fantastic. But let's hitch it onto this as well, so it can be a mutual promotion. I think that's the sort of tack we can take.
Yeah, so we got a WCA retrofit email group as well.
Right.
Which is you're on it. So it's me, Andrew, Bill, Chris, you, Jeremy Wyatt, Kate Sylvester, Maggie. Maggie is together with Marion Davis, isn't she?
She's the one I was meaning.
Yeah.
She was on the original retrofit team.
And Margaret Paul, is that the same as Maggie, or is that a different person? I'm not quite sure. I think it might be the same person, but I'm not sure. Anyway, and Richard Eccleston and Tony Caravan are on the email group, but that was Yeah, so that was originally.
Was that the original that was probably the original retrofit group, wasn't it?
Yeah. So maybe we either want to have another one or just extend that with the extra people.
Well, we can ask the people who were in the old one if they'd like to be involved in the new one, I guess.
Yeah.
Because initially the idea was that it was the lead advisors, so they've had the training, but obviously people like Tony and Maggie are probably far better qualified than somebody who's done lead training, you know.
Yes. Yeah.
But I want to try and make it, you know, the year of 24, the lead trainees this year, because it sounds like they've got different mentors as well, some better than others.
Yeah.
So at least if they can share what they've learned from their mentor, it might be different from what the others have done.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. Well,
and giving them a sense of identity, you know, that they've really achieved something and they're going to make a difference.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, and not to be too bogged down with the technicalities of retrofit, but the story, having knowledge and then sharing those stories, because you never know, you know, it's a bit like us talking about climate change. We can't know all the ins and outs and the figures and the whatever, but we can share the stories. You know, and then point people to the experts.
Yeah.
Needed.
So in terms of our plan, anyway, the biggest problem at the moment is if Ruth isn't going to be working on it, then there's quite a lot of work to do that we need to try and sort of work out who's working on it.
Well, it's almost finding out what that work would be. I mean, she was saying she was fully occupied until Green Open Homes was launched, 3 days a week. That's what she agreed to do. And now she's not agreeing to do it, possibly. Let's just find out. I think I'll have a chat with Bill, see what he thinks about her email. And, you know, even if it's just a matter of making, she's just basically seems to have sent all the work, all the spreadsheets to us. You know,
right.
But, you know, I don't know how much actual work there is to do, how much of it is group emails we can send out when we've got the database, how much individual conversations she used to have. I don't know. Well,
I mean, she did have quite a lot of conversation. I mean, there's quite a lot of email exchanges that she dealt with. And I mean, the other thing is, I mean, she put out the form with the, you know, asking for the details, and she actually sort of manually transposed that onto the Green Open Homes website.
Right. Yes,
so that's one of the things we need to do, and make sure that's kept up to date, and also chase up information where we've got information missing and stuff like that. So so that'll be one of the main things we need to do. And of course, you know, we're also, you know, trying to get out stuff to
how busy is Robbie?
Well, I don't think he's really too busy, and if he was under someone's wing, I think he'd probably, you know, be able to do quite a lot more. I mean, it could be worth reaching out to him and asking him that. I mean, my problem is, I'm just, well, I mean, we've got this, the rest of September, this council house is, you know, going at the end of September. It's my best friend's house. It's got all this stuff in it, and I need to help him put it out and make a bit of space in my house to put some of his stuff. So I'm going to be pretty busy with that.
Exactly. You know, we say we need to find a friend.
Exactly. If I mean, I think Robbie is a distinct possibility. And he, you know, he's very with it, and, you know, intelligent and clever and you know, knowledgeable. And he doesn't do social media, sadly, but, you know, so he wouldn't particularly want to do that job part of it. But in terms of helping to you know, get people on board and maintaining the Green Open Homes website, he might be up for helping with that if necessary. But yeah, you need to find out what the
you know,
is
that
really
was what I'm just finding. Is he, you know, he's not caring for an elderly aunt, or, you know,
well, he does help his gran in the garden sometimes. but
I had a lovely chat with him on Saturday, and basically he said he wasn't working because he didn't feel right working in a field that wasn't in climate change. So maybe a short project for climate change might appeal.
Yeah. I mean, I think he has said before, is there any sort of budget associated with the project? And of course, we have got our money from TSE, which we haven't really dug into at all yet. We haven't, WCA hasn't, although, you could argue that we've used some of it on the Green Open Homes. So, I think that might also encourage him to, if part of the project and do it. And I think he'd probably do a good job, although, I can't speak with experience, although I know that, he certainly knows what he's doing. So he could do that.
So no promises, but it might be, and I would think, where we need to be very specific. If we have people to help us, we need to be very specific. Well, we always used to have a phrase, I don't mind how you do it, but I know I will tell you what done looks like,
Right. Yes.
Otherwise, people can spend hours and hours and hours working on something, and you think, shame you did it in that program. I'm going to have to spend the night.
Right. Yes.
You want to know what done looks like.
Anyway, that's a very good idea. So it is.
But there may be. We can put in the email after the meeting. That we are, very much looking for if any. I don't want people to think, well, I'm not going to stick my hand out because they're going to ask me to do something. But equally, well, if they're happy to help, then it's a shame that lass has gone off around the world now.
What?
The lady.
Sorry.
The lady who offered help and then
Oh, Amber, you mean Amber Vasher?
Sorry?
You mean Amber? Or
Amber, yes.
Yeah. Well, she'll be back.
When will she be back?
Late November. She will be working soon after that. But
But she might be interested in helping with the Wiltshire COP.
Yeah. Oh, yes. I'm sure she would. I mean, she's more into strategy and stuff like that, and helping to plan stuff, I think. So she'd probably be great at that sort of thing, engaging stakeholders and that sort of thing.
There you go then.
Yeah. So really good idea about Robbie, but find out what's happening with Ruth, and then we can either you or I am happy to talk to Robbie or you or whatever.
Yeah, and we'll see if we get any, we might get people coming back from the email when we send out to the other lead advisors and so on.
Yes.
That haven't come, they might offer some time, you never know.
Yeah. Okay.
Or they might offer their stay-at-home 19-year-old who they're desperate to get doing something useful, you never know.
Yeah. Okay. Yes. So you're going to do an email.
Well, I'd love your notes from the meeting.
I put the link in the chat to my notes.
I will speed go through if I can bear it, I will speed go through the Zoom call as well, if I can have a look at the recording.
Oh, right. Yes. I'll stop do that. I put the link to the document in the chat. So you pick that up, or do you want me to send it a different way? I can WhatsApp it to you if you like, or whatever. So that's the link to my notes for this meeting.
Oh wow, thank you.
Which are not, which is just the narrative thing, and I've just picked out some salient points, probably with lots of gaps in it, but it just might jog your memory on one or two things that people said. Combine it with your own memory of the meeting, and then I'll stop the recording now and send you the link. Yes. Are you on the contact at wiltshireclimatealliance.org.uk?
Don't think so, no.
Do you want to be?
Oh.
Well, it's up to you. I mean,
I'm terrible. I am on so many email groups.
Yeah.
And
that's fine. Yeah.
I do have this is one reason I came a bit unstuck with Ruth after the holiday, because I just beg, if people have got important things to say, send me a WhatsApp saying I've sent you an important email.
Yeah.
Because when you get these long, you've probably noticed I start new emails off because I find you get threads and the topic has changed markedly, but the title still comes up as the same thing. So you look at it and think, oh, that's okay. That's actually, I look at that when I've got time. And then you go into it and they say, can we have a meeting tomorrow? And this is 3 days ago. It's like, I didn't
right. Yes. Yeah. No, WhatsApp's urgent things are quite.
But just WhatsApp me and say I've sent you an email about. I'll probably pick the email up, but I might not.
Yeah. No, I usually do.
I get about 30 emails a day, even though I'm not working now. And
well, so do I. I mean, if not more. But I Google sorts them out quite nicely for me, and it's only the primary inbox that I ever really look at. But I still get, a number of newsletters for lots of things that I've signed up to, which are, interesting, but I don't very often read them. So you tend to miss other stuff in between, don't you?
One of the fascinating things I've done, do you know EDIE?
I've heard of it.
Which it's really good. And I was just on it as a non-industry, because it's basically for industry, well, sort of for industry, but it's a lot wider than that, on climate matters.
Right.
And last week I actually signed up. I just put Wiltshire Climate Alliance and my role was this, and went through the whole thing. And now you get to read the whole articles and they're absolutely fascinating, to see what is happening, and really good links to
no, there's lots. Right, okay.
So,
yeah. Right. So have you got the document, or do you want me to WhatsApp it to you or email it to you?
If you email it, that's the safest. The other one I chased up this afternoon, because with the NPPF, I'm quite worried. I am quite anxious about the embodied carbon of all these buildings.
Yes, absolutely.
And of course, Bath are doing great stuff in just that.
Indeed.
So that's really interesting. And they've managed to change the planning recommendations in Bath and North East Somerset to take account of embodied carbon.
Yes.
They're literally like an industry leader or council
leader. Yes, exactly. And that was one of the comments we put into Wiltshire Council. We put a copy from Bath, and when we were responding to the consultation of Wiltshire Council local plan, we did exactly that. But it ought to go into the NPPF, so that national thing, so that it doesn't need to be in everyone's local plan really. Having said that, what they put in the Bath local plan, unfortunately, it was only a very timid start. So they said that non-residential buildings of a certain size need to report their calculations on the embedded carbon.
Okay.
I think and I think there might have been a limit. But it was set very generously so that it wasn't really going to catch anything. So it was just a start really so that they could start to understand,
How long ago was that, Julian?
Sorry?
How long ago was that?
Well, that's in their current adopted plan, which was a year or two ago, I think.
Okay, because it came out in a news item this month.
All right.
About it. So I was just wondering if they've tightened it up, because
that's
there
interesting.
is a department in Bath just doing that. So,
yeah, I mean, normally the local plan is on a 5-year cycle or so.
Yeah.
If they have a supplementary planning document on a particular topic, then they can sort of tighten it up in between the 5-year cycle. And that's one of the other things we recommended to Wiltshire, that they had more supplementary planning documents that they could actually develop as they went along. Well, I don't know if they have. Well, we haven't seen the final one yet. Yeah, it's possible Mark might have done something like that. I'd be interested to see what the thing that came out a month ago was.
I put it in the NPPF WhatsApp group.
Did you? Okay, right. I'll have a look then. Thanks.
But,
right.
Hey ho. There we go. Thank you very much.
This thing.
And
well, thank you. It's
hopefully
great too.
Bill will be able to watch that meeting in his glorious Portuguese house.
Yes. I'll oh, I still haven't. Did I stop recording? Yeah. I'll as soon as I get the recording link, I'll send that to you together with the notes.
Thank you. Okie dokie.
All right.
Cheers.
Cheers, Jackie.
Bye.
Bye.